To kind of start with that travel experience जो आपने किया, because this whole journey from the travel to the music that you put out on Coke Studio, I feel like it's very linked, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'd love to kind of hear the experiences that you had, what you discovered about yourself during those experiences, and just some highlights. Like, how have you kind of grown across this year? Because you have such a unique kind of story.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's an absolute pleasure. Big fan of the show, and um, well, everything's linked. Everything is somehow or the other it's linked. So even the travel show, me myself finding myself and then making music that means so much to me, all of it is connected. And I'm a very strong believer of the things that you go through, and they eventually end up being something, and they come out as one thing. So yeah, it's been an interesting year. We were fortunate enough to make this travel series, and I was fortunate enough to ride my bike throughout Pakistan and meet people, experience different things that I don't know, things that things that were out there and I had no idea about. Um, One thing for sure that what we think we know is so not true. There's a truth out there waiting for you, and it's your truth. It could be different from my version of the truth, and your version can be completely different. But you need to go and find your own truth. And when I did that, I realized that there's so much more to life. There's so much more to people. There's so much more to different cultures. There's so much more in history. So one very tricky thing along the way that we realized was that how history has been treated over the years in this country and in the subcontinent, and how how we have fed this version of history which has nothing to do with reality. And unfortunately, people are scared to talk about it because most of the people who wrote history for this region, they're long gone, they're dead. And they don't want to touch that because they've written something about it and they don't want to change it now. So we can't change history because the people who wrote it are dead, but we're stuck with the idea of a history which is nowhere near reality. And so it's quite interesting. So the whole idea, which really moved me, was that I need to work on, my own, curiosity. I need to be more curious, and I need to get out there and search for answers that the questions that I have in my heart. So the whole idea was to trigger that curiosity in the minds of the people. And when we talk about the minds, we're talking about young minds. 70% of the
Yeah,
population of this country
under 23
is
years
is
old.
youth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's youth. It's the millennial population. So they have no idea what's going on and what's real and what's not. They believe in things that they hear and read on the news, and most of the time, is not true. And you know, the, there's a narrative that we all follow, but then there's when you're on ground, the reality is quite different.
Completely agree.
So, so when I was on the road, I started noticing things and I started experiencing things on a very different level, and I started meeting people, and I was realizing that I've believed in something all my life, and when I'm on the road, it's all so different. And what I've been told about these certain groups of people, or this province, or this community, it's all a lie.
And
It's
it's
not
turned
true.
on
And
its head. सारा कुछ है ना उल्टा हो जाता है.
yes, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, so when that happened, that really moved me, and you could say that I left home with a few questions. When I came back home, I had a bunch of more questions, questions that I questions that I need answers to now. But I'm so glad the show is an ongoing show, and we get to explore some more. We're working on the next season of the show, and the same curiosity and the same connection that I felt on the road, it started reflecting in all the things that I do. It started reflecting in my work. It started reflecting in my writing. It started reflecting things that I connect to the most, and topics that I really want to talk about. And so, similarly, we were supposed to do a song this year, a song that was left behind last year. We were supposed to do two songs last year on Coke Studio, but
Yeah.
one song did not make it. So we wanted to get back and do that song. So when I met Rohail Bhai, we talked about and we discussed about how to do that song now. But while we were talking about it, we realized that maybe let's try something different. Let's write something brand new, original for the show. Something high energy, something dhamal, something that brings in another high energy female vocalist.
हर फन मौला मौला मैनू कर मेरे मौला हर फन मौला मौला मेरा भर दे झोला हर फन मौला मौला मैनू कर मेरे मौला हर फन मौला मौला मेरा भर दे झोला हर फन मौला मौला
The idea just ignited this whole thing, and we had Shuja Heather come in, compose the thing, write the lyrics. He's a brilliant producer, brilliant songwriter, and and that's how the song came into being. And most importantly for me, after the journey that I did, uh, I found there was this newfound connection with my creator, and I felt much more closer to God after that whole experience, because I was stripped off of all the luxuries and all the comforts that one can imagine
Yeah.
while being on the, while having a life that we do, but then being on the road and you're sleeping on char paiya, and you've parked your bike and there's no shade and you're sleeping under the shade of your bike. So you're stripped off from all the luxuries, and you start realizing and you start looking at life very differently. So yeah, I mean, it was quite a transformation. And when I read the lyrics to the song that we did,
बहुत
it
खूबसूरत.
just resonated so much more. It resonated so
Yeah.
much more. It talked about being connected to that higher truth and higher self and higher form, and not taking your life too seriously, because there's quite insignificant in this whole scheme of things.
यार आपने इतनी कोई खूबसूरत बातें करी हैं, and like I can relate to every single one of these things, like the way you started by saying that, that everything is kind of is written in a sense, and everything kind of forms its way, and then only in retrospect, like अब आगे जाके 3-4 साल बाद आप देखते हैं कि यार ये जो मैंने वो चीज़ करी थी पिछले 2 साल पहले, जब मैं देख रहा था अपने आप को, सोच रहा था कि ये तो पागल हूँ मैं, ये क्यों कर रहा हूँ, but then in retrospect all of it kind of aligns, and you're able to
Yeah,
see that if I
yeah,
hadn't done that I wouldn't be here, and all of those things kind of connect. And like for
so true.
me, I took a 3-year trip and I went to Italy, Portugal, Morocco, Spain, just all over the world, trying to find bhai main kya karna, like what am I here for? What am I supposed to be doing with my
Yeah,
life? And what that period made me realize was that I give every country and every people a chance, but I wasn't going to Pakistan and experiencing that, because I had a silo of like, har chuttiyon mein jana hai, you're
yeah,
going to meet the family, and then you're going to come back. But you don't get to experience
yeah,
your own self.
yeah,
And what that 3-year trip kind of led me to was going to Pakistan alone and getting in a car and going.
yeah,
And that's when you start to kind of really open up, or jo aap insignificance ki baat kare of the self, that
yeah.
truly hits you hard. Because when you are
No
alone, or
doubt.
aap, like घूम
Yeah,
फिर रहे होते हैं, लोगों से मिल रहे होते हैं, because
yeah,
when you open your heart and you're ready to let in what
yeah,
the world
yeah,
wants to give you, and you are in that zone,
yeah,
it's incredible the people that you meet, the places that you see, and the conversations that you have, just like you said, because ऐसा
yeah,
होता है कि जैसे दुनिया ने ना अपने ट्यून करके they're just giving you every single thing to kind of keep
yeah,
on helping you in the path that you're on. And it's just so beautiful to kind of
yeah,
see that journey that you took as
yeah,
well. And I mean, like the places that you've been, I am dying to go there. Like I would love to be able to go to Balochistan and Hingol and all of these other places. I've been to the north, but I haven't been as much to the south.
mm,
And then being able to experience those cultures the way you kind of do, you
yeah.
can't not be affected. You can't not come
See,
out
that's
as
the
a
thing.
changed person.
That's the thing. There was an Umair Jaswal uh, before 2020, and there's an Umair Jaswal after 2020. This whole year has taught me so many things. It's taught me, uh, patience, and showing strength, and having a bigger heart, and empathy. All these things, they're all very important because we all do some work in one form or the other. Uh, we have people employed, uh, or we are employed by someone. So you see the dynamic changing of the world, and you start seeing that how selfish we have been all our lives. And this is a true time. This is a time where we truly know uh, how not human we are.
Yeah.
Like we're not humans.
We get
We don't
conditioned.
deserve.
We get
Yeah,
conditioned to
yeah.
want things, to
Yeah.
want more, to
Yes,
become
to
a
want
certain way.
more and more. Yeah, yeah, to want more, keep wanting more. Uh, and this year we realized that how important it is to give back, how important it is to have a heart, how important it is to just feel the other person's pain as well. Because this was some, this is this whole event was still going on. It's something that nobody is safe from.
Yeah.
It affects everyone. I think it affects the richer you are, it affects you the most because you're scared of getting it. And so this year changed all of us, and I hope that a lot of us have changed in a way where we've become the better versions of ourselves, because uh, we really do need that. We really do need that. We need love. We need compassion. We need tolerance. We need patience. Uh, and one thing that I've realized in this one year that which changed in me even more is that I've started listening more. I've started before this year, I would say a lot of things, and I would listen less, and I would be the person who would be talking the most in a group of people. And I realized that maybe that's not what I want anymore. I want to listen. I want to tune into what the universe is trying to say to me. I want to start listening to everything around me. I want to start listening to people, their opinions. I want to accept them. I want to tolerate them. And I realized that this in this country, in the youth of this country, is unfortunately, you see this weird hate for everything. People on social media hate everything, and I realized that they're just reflecting their inner insecurities and
Yeah.
their own demons. They're just showing you that just because I don't agree with you does not mean that I hate you. So there's a difference between a dialogue there's a difference between and a sermon. We should
You
have healthy dialogues. We should have healthy discussions. We should appreciate each other's point of view. And if we don't agree to it, we don't we don't need to hate each other, because unfortunately what I've realized is that that's all that we've taught to our younger generation, that if he doesn't agree to you, you start hating him. And if he doesn't agree the way you think or the way you want to see the world, you should start hating him. He's one of them, not one of us.
you
So that is something that is quite alarming, and that's something that I would really want to change about the youth. And that's why all my efforts and things that I say and things that I do and things that are shaping up in the future, they're working towards this goal that we try and bring acceptance and patience.
उमेर आपने जो ये बात करी है dialogue की and this hate, not hate but like this unjust kind of not wanting to have a dialogue and to look at the other person's
Yeah.
perspective is so important. Like I don't think खाली पाकिस्तान में, I think ये पूरी दुनिया में है, where
Yeah.
it's very difficult to empathize and be able to create dialogue and understand the other person, because we have been conditioned कि भाई एक ही तरीका है देखने का. Sometimes I actually listen to people and like you'll have a dialogue with someone else and they'll be like, and you ask why, just to kind of
Yeah.
understand the intricacies of like, why is this person speaking this way, what is their meaning behind it. I've heard
Yeah.
people say, why लड़ाई होती है, क्यों पूछोगे तो लड़ाई होती है, right? And like,
अच्छा, सवाल
but how do you
सवाल
kind of
पूछना लड़ाई है.
survive? Exactly. So that means that you're supposed to be conditioned on that one thing, and if everything else is a fight.
Yeah.
But if you take that back and look at it for what it is that it's a question to understand where this is coming from, that leads you further. That takes us, like, हमें आगे ले जाता है वो, because we're able to understand, create common ground, and have different
Yeah.
perspectives on life, different perspectives on experiences, different perspectives, because you weren't born and raised the same way I was. You have not had the same
Yeah.
experiences
Yeah.
I have, and I have a lot to learn
True.
from you, right?
Yeah.
And it's just that mentality and that way of thinking, I think, is so important. in the youth,
yeah,
in us. I mean, it's just that's what I really think takes society forward. And then also on top of that, जो साल हमारा गुजरा है with COVID is something that,
yeah,
you know, just like you said, could never have been anticipated.
yeah,
हम तो कभी 100 साल में सोच भी नहीं सकते थे कि फ्लाइटें कैंसिल हो जाएंगी, लॉकडाउन्स हो जाएंगी. That's, it's something that we've never in our lives
yeah,
experienced, right?
yeah,
But in a
yeah,
day, all of that happened. And
yeah,
unfortunately, like a lot of people had bad experiences, and unfortunately we've lost a lot of people. But it has
yeah,
also forced us to kind of go within and to
yeah,
understand, okay, what is it that you actually want and need out of life. For some it's, you know, doubling down on some relationships and clearing out some others. For some it's like just kind of
yeah,
understanding how you want to kind of go with your life. And just the way you're saying, I think it's so beautiful. Okay, you're looking at the world and how you kind of want to go forward by
yeah,
imparting the knowledge and the stuff that you now have
yeah,
from this journey to the younger
yeah,
population. And that's incredible.
yeah.
And I think that's so so important.
Well, well. I think if there's one thing that we can leave behind, because we have only finite number of days
Yeah,
on this planet, in this life. What we can do is we can leave this place slightly better
yeah,
and in a better position than we got it. I do blame our ancestors, but I don't want to be the one who's blaming. I want to be someone who's doing something. I mean,
yeah,
um, when all of this hate was being brewed, when all of this divide was being created, they stayed quiet and they didn't do much about it, and they let it happen. And look where we are today. And I just want to make sure that there are forward thinking people, open minded people, people who are willing to understand, different point of views, and just, just overall acceptance for everything, because that's where love starts.
yeah.
It starts with acceptance. And if
And
we can
acceptance of
leave this
yourself.
population. Yes, yes, absolutely. And if we can leave this place, a little more, the kids a little more curious about how they got here, who they are, what they're supposed to do, and not some fake history lesson that we're taught in our history books over and over again, year after year, conditioned to a certain mindset, thinking that this is what's right, this is what happened. But there's so much out there. There's so much out there that we don't know, and kids will never know, because now they're left to these new platforms to waste their times on. And we don't love reading books at all. We
Yeah.
we don't like sitting in groups where there's an
Without their
interesting
phones.
conversation happening. Yeah, yeah. And we really don't we मैं मुझे लगता है कि वो जो गैदरिंग का भी कल्चर था ना, वो भी इतना डम डाउन हो गया ओवर द इयर्स कि कोई इंटेलेक्चुअल बात तो होती नहीं। कोई फॉरवर्ड थिंकिंग आइडिया या कोई 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 बिग आइडियाज डिस्कस नहीं होते। और अगर एंड इट्स स्केरी बिकॉज if this is the youth and the things that they're busy with, God help us in the future.
नहीं, इंशाल्लाह अच्छा होगा. um,
Yeah, yeah, I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful because there are people who are making all the efforts. There are people like you, who are conducting talks and interesting topics to, taking them to people, to audiences, and bringing in some good content. I think it's always going to be a balance,
of course,
but I really wish that more people get on board and talk about change, talk about all the things that we want to see
that take us
changing for
forward. Yeah,
ourselves. Yeah, yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
उमेर, अगर हम थोड़ा सा वापस कोक स्टूडियो पे आते हैं.
yeah,
You've been with Coke Studio for some time, I think since
yeah,
2012, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah. Mm.
I'd love to understand the unexpected learnings that you've garnered over that time with Coke Studio.
Well, what I've realized over the years with this platform is that you with music, you can't tame it. You can't control it. You can't. The, you know, we love control in our lives, in everyday lives. we all love control, and it's one of the biggest learnings in life that the lesser you are in control, or you think that you are in control, the better you are, because sometimes we try controlling things and we just ruin them. Sometimes things take an organic curve and they turn towards certain, or they incline towards certain directions very organically, and we should let that happen. We should not be stubborn. We should not be very rigid in our thought process. And uh, Coke Studio is a platform that I think teaches you acceptance as well, in the same way, because you are trying out new sounds, you are working with new musicians, you're working with new ideas, you're working with melodies that you might not work on in your own musical career. So it's a beautiful platform which teaches you a lot of things. And some of my learnings are that, try not to control everything, because when you do that, you lose the essence of things. Sometimes things happen through you, and they happen through you naturally. Let them come. Be open to the idea of letting things happen.
That's such a beautiful thing that you just said, because serendipity only happens when you let it. And the unfortunate
Yeah.
truth is that we try to control everything when the only thing we can control is ourselves, and everything else is going to happen.
Yeah.
And this year is like a
Yeah.
prime example for it. Um,
Exactly.
so it's a,
Exactly.
it's really beautiful what you just said there. Umair, आपसे आखिरी सवाल
Yeah.
is coming back to Pakistan. Up, like I'd love to hear a little bit about like some of the most cherished memories आपकी कोई बचपन की यादें हों जो whenever you're traveling or you're meeting people from outside, like
Yeah.
either brings you back to Islamabad
Yeah.
or wherever you are in Pakistan, or how you describe it to your friends.
Well, you know, मैं हमेशा सोचता था, people always talk about which city is the best city, right? And I recently moved. I mean, I'm part in Karachi and then in Islamabad after getting married. So,
Mubarak.
uh, khair mubarak, khair mubarak. So, we always talk about which city is the best. And I think it's not the city, it's the place where you've had your good memories. You make good memories anywhere in the world,
Completely agree.
and you will associate that place. Why do we call it feels like home?
Yeah.
We use that term. It feels like home, because you associate those things with good memories. Um, yes, Islamabad is beautiful. It has amazing weather, but similar thing that happens with music, that people who are in the era of their teenage is the music that they will relate to all their lives, because you are going through such changes in life. In your teenage, you're falling in love, you're making friends, you're making your first money, you're getting good looking or ugly looking or whatever looking, so you have tons of memories and emotions in that time, and there are tons of emotional triggers spread out in
Yeah.
that time. So whatever you will hear during that time period, it will connect to you no matter what. So if I relate to the 90s, I know people who are like 10 years older than me, they will relate to the 80s, and some people who will relate to the 70s even more, and they will say, oh, those were the days, those were the times. So, first of all, so that debate goes out of the window, because for me, you need to understand that everybody, whoever they are, they feel at home a few places, on this planet, and they love those places. And yes, I feel at home in a lot of places. I'm making Karachi my home now, because I have to live here, and I'm making good memories in Karachi. So there are moments when I feel very strongly about Islamabad. There are moments that I feel about very strongly about Karachi, things and memories that I make here as well. Um, but yes, again, I was born and raised in Islamabad, so there was so much inspiration in that city. There was so much curiosity for me, and just the adventure and exploration that was out there for me in Islamabad, that it just feels like home. And there are I could be anywhere in the world, and I would be thinking about Islamabad, Islamabad ki sham, Islamabad ki barish, Islamabad ki thand. But again, it's हर किसी के लिए अपना अपना.
For sure. Umair, thank you so much for taking out the time.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. Thank you.